The date is August 1st, 1571. The sun is beating down on the stone walls of Famagusta, a Venetian fortress on the island of Cyprus. The air smells of sulfur, rotting meat, and unwashed bodies. The man walking through the city gates is named Marcantonio Bragadin. He is a Venetian patrician, a commander of the Republic, and one of the finest military minds of his generation. He stands tall, but he is gaunt. His armor hangs loosely on his frame. He has been starving for weeks. His garrison, once 8,000 strong, has been reduced to 500 walking skeletons. He is walking out to surrender. For 11 months, Bragadin has held this city against the full might of the Ottoman Empire, an army of 100,000 men, artillery that turned the medieval walls into gravel. They have eaten the horses. They have eaten the rats. They have eaten the leather of their boots. And yet, they held. They held until the gunpowder ran dry and the hope ran out. Lala Mustafa Pasha, the Ottoman general waiting in the silk tent outside the walls, has given his word. It is a binding military oath. Surrender and you may leave. You may keep your weapons. You may keep your honor. You may sail for Crete and never return. Bragadin believes him. In the 16th century, the code of war is brutal, but the word of general is supposed to mean something. Bragadin enters the tent. He is respectful. He offers the keys to the city. And for a moment there is silence. Then Mustafa Pasha gives a signal. It happens in a blur of steel. The Venetian officers standing behind Bragadin are seized. There is no trial. There is no conversation. Scimitars flash in the dim light of the tent. Heads roll onto the carpet. The sand soaks up the blood of the Venetian aristocracy in seconds. But they do not kill Bragadin. Death would be a mercy. And Mustafa Pasha is not feeling merciful. He is angry. This stubborn Italian caused him to lose 50,000 men to take one city. He wants to send a message. They drag Bragadin outside. They cut off his nose. They cut off his ears. They force him to kneel in the dirt, bleeding, and watch as his officers are butchered. But the horror is just beginning. For 2 weeks, they keep him alive. They parade him through the Ottoman camp. They force him to carry heavy sacks of earth to repair the walls he defended, whipping him when he stumbles. He is forced to kiss the ground every time he passes Mustafa's tent. He is an object of ridicule, a broken toy for the soldiers. And then on August 17th comes the finale. They tie him to a column in the town square of Famagusta. The square is packed with soldiers and civilians. The sun is high. The heat is oppressive. An executioner steps forward with a small, sharp knife. They do not hang him. They do not behead him. They begin to flay him, alive. They start at the shoulders. They peel the skin downward in slow, agonizing strips. Bragadin, incredibly, does not die immediately. He recites the Miserere. He prays. He stays conscious as his own skin is removed from his body like a shirt. When they finally reach his waist, his heart gives out. He dies. But the Ottomans are not done. They finish the job on his corpse. They stuff his skin with straw, sew it back together, and dress it in his commander's uniform. They mount this grotesque scarecrow on a cow and parade it through the streets. Finally, they hoist the stuffed skin of Marcantonio Bragadin to the mainmast of Mustafa Pasha's galley. It flaps in the wind like a sail, a warning to the west, a warning to Venice. This is what happens when you resist. The Ottomans thought this would terrify Europe into submission. They were wrong. They had just lit a fuse that would explode the world. To understand why a man flayed alive in Cyprus matters, you have to zoom out. You have to look at the map of the world in 1571. The Mediterranean Sea is not a vacation destination. It is a war zone. It is the border between two civilizations that have been trying to kill each other for 1,000 years. On the east, you have the Ottoman Empire. Under the late Suleiman the Magnificent, it had become the greatest superpower on earth. It stretches from the gates of Vienna to the sands of Yemen, from Baghdad to Algiers. It is a well-oiled machine of conquest. Its bureaucracy is efficient. Its army is disciplined, and its navy is undefeated. On the west, you have a mess. Christian Europe is a broken family fighting over an inheritance. The Protestant Reformation has set the north on fire. Germany is fractured. France is in the middle of a civil war. England is rogue. The only thing standing between the Ottomans and total domination of the Mediterranean are three powers who hate each other almost as much as they hate the Turks: the Spanish Empire, the Republic of Venice, and the Pope. Let's talk about the Sultan. Selim II. History calls him Selim the Drunkard. He is not his father, Suleiman. He prefers wine and poetry to the saddle and the sword. But he has a problem. In the Ottoman system, a sultan must prove his worth through conquest. He lives in the shadow of a giant. He needs a victory. He needs a trophy. He looks at the map, and his eyes land on Cyprus. It's perfect. It sits deep in Ottoman waters, a Venetian colony producing wine, sugar, and cotton. It is a nest of Christian spies and pirates. Taking it should be easy. Venice is a merchant republic. They care about profit, not war. They will fold. In 1570, Selim demands the island. Venice, to everyone's surprise, refuses. They choose war. But Venice cannot fight the Ottoman Empire alone. It's a math problem. The Ottomans have more people, more timber, more money, and more guns. Venice has money and ships, but they lack the manpower. They need help. They appeal to the Pope, Pius V. Pius is an old man, a Dominican friar, who wears a hair shirt under his vestments. He is severe, devout, and obsessed. He has been dreaming of a crusade his entire life. He sees the smoke rising from Cyprus. He hears the reports of the massacres at Nicosia, and he knows this is the moment. He sends legates to the courts of Europe. He begs. He threatens excommunication. He offers indulgences. He tries to forge an alliance. The response is underwhelming. France says no. They have a secret trade deal with the Ottomans. The Holy Roman Empire says no. They have a truce with the Sultan. England laughs. That leaves Spain. King Philip II, the most powerful man in Christendom. He rules Spain, the Netherlands, parts of Italy, and the entire New World. His gold fleets bring literal tons of bullion into Seville every year. But Philip is a cautious man. He is an accountant king. He sits in his granite palace, El Escorial, signing papers until late into the night. He hates gambling. And a naval war with the Ottomans? That is the biggest gamble there is. Philip's advisors tell him to stay out of it. Let Venice burn, they say. They are our rivals. If they lose their empire, we gain their trade. But then the news of Bragadin arrives. The story of the flaying, the skin stuffed with straw, the utter humiliation of a Christian commander. It triggers something in the European psyche. It is an insult too grievous to ignore. It cuts through the politics and hits the pride. Even the cautious Philip II realizes he cannot sit this out. If the Ottomans take Cyprus and hold it, they will control the eastern Mediterranean. Next, they will take Crete. Then Sicily. Then they will be landing on the coast of Spain. The fear is palpable. The Turk is the boogeyman of the 16th century. Mothers threaten their children that the Turks will come for them if they don't sleep. On May 25th, 1571, the Holy League is officially proclaimed in St. Peter's Basilica. It is a miracle of diplomacy. Spain, Venice, and the Papal States agree to combine their fleets to destroy the Ottoman navy. But a piece of paper doesn't win wars. The Holy League is a disaster waiting to happen. The Venetians want to save Cyprus. The Spanish want to protect their own coasts and maybe take Tunis. The Genoese, who are renting ships to Spain, just want to get paid and not scratch the paint on their galleys. They all gather in Messina, Sicily, in the late summer of 1571. And immediately they start fighting, not with the Ottomans, but with each other. Venetian sailors get into brawls with Spanish soldiers in the taverns. Genoese captains refuse to salute Venetian admirals. The supply lines are a mess. The bread is moldy. The water is bad. Dysentery is sweeping through the camps. It looks like the whole crusade is going to dissolve before a single ship leaves the harbor. They need a leader. They need someone who can make these hereditary enemies row in the same direction. They need a prince. Don John of Austria enters. He is 24 years old. He is handsome, charismatic, a womanizer, and a daredevil. He keeps a pet lion cub in his cabin. He dresses in gold armor and dances better than anyone at court. He is also a bastard. His father was the Emperor Charles V, the man who ruled half the world. His mother was a washerwoman or a burgher's daughter, depending on who you ask. He was raised in secret, unaware of his lineage, until his half-brother, Philip II, acknowledged him. Because he is illegitimate, he is expendable. He can be given high command because he has royal blood, but he can never inherit the throne. He is hungry for glory. He wants a kingdom of his own. He wants to be a king, not just a Don. Philip appoints Don John as the supreme commander of the Holy League. It is a stroke of genius. He is young enough to be aggressive, but he has a royal status to force the old, grumpy Venetian admirals to shut up and listen. When Don John arrives in Messina, he finds chaos. Sebastiano Venier, the Venetian commander, is 75 years old. He is a furious, bitter old man who hates the Spanish. He screams at Don John in meetings. Gianandrea Doria, the Genoese commander, is calculating and cold. He thinks the expedition is a waste of money and wants to preserve his ships. Don John does something remarkable. He doesn't play politics. He plays the soldier. He goes down to the docks. He inspects the ships. He breaks up fights personally. When the Venetians run out of money to pay their mercenaries, Don John opens his own chest and pays them with Spanish gold. He visits the sick. He drills the men. He orders the fleets to intermingle. Venetian ships next to Spanish ships, forcing them to work together. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Ionian Sea, the Ottoman fleet is gathering. They are anchored at Lepanto, a fortified harbor in the Gulf of Corinth, modern-day Greece. Their commander is Ali Pasha, the Capitan Pasha. He is the opposite of Don John. He is a family man, deeply religious, beloved by his slaves and his soldiers. He carries a piece of an ancient tooth in his pocket, a relic of the Prophet Muhammad. Ali Pasha has a massive fleet, nearly 300 ships. But he has a problem too. He has been at sea for 6 months. His men are tired. His rowers are exhausted. He has lost thousands of men to plague. He sends word to the Sultan in Constantinople. Should we winter in the harbor? The season is late. Storms are coming. The Sultan sends back a one-line order. Fight. Destroy the infidels. Bring me their heads. To disobey the Sultan is death. Ali Pasha sighs, prays, and orders his fleet to prepare for battle. Back in Messina, the Christian fleet is finally ready. It is a Leviathan, 206 galleys, 6 galleasses. We will get to those monsters later. 1,815 guns, 13,000 sailors, 43,000 rowers, 28,000 soldiers. On September 16th, they sail. It is the largest invasion force in history up to that point. The line of ships stretches for miles. The sea is covered in canvas and wood. On board one of the Spanish galleys, the Marquesa, there is a young soldier. He is sick with a high fever. He is shaking, sweating delirious. His captain tells him to stay below decks. No, the young man says, I would rather die fighting for God and my kingdom be safe below. His name is Miguel de Cervantes. In a few years, he will write Don Quixote. Today, he is just another grunt with a sword and a rosary. The fleet moves slowly. They creep down the coast of Italy, then cross over to Greece. The tension is unbearable. Every shadow on the horizon looks like an enemy sail. Every shift in the wind feels like a bad omen. Don John makes a crucial tactical decision. He orders the beaks, the long iron rams on the front of the galleys, to be cut off. His captains think he is insane. The ram is the main weapon of the galley. You ram the other ship, then you board. No, Don John says. The rams get in the way of the forward cannons. Cut them off. We are going to turn our ships into floating artillery platforms. We will shoot them to pieces before we even touch them. It is a gamble. If he's wrong, they will be defenseless in close quarters. October 7th, 1571. Sunday. The sun rises over the Gulf of Patras. The fog lifts, and there they are, the Ottoman fleet, a wall of wood and white sails. They are formed in a massive crescent moon, the symbol of Islam, stretching from the north shore to the south. The Christians are sailing west to east. The Ottomans are sailing east to west. Two massive jagged lines of teeth, closing in on each other. Don John runs up a flag on his flagship. The real. It is the banner of the Holy League. He jumps into a small, fast boat and is rowed down the line of his ships. He holds a crucifix high in the air. "My children," he shouts, "you are here to fight the battle of the cross. Win or lose, do your duty and God will grant you glory." On the Ottoman side, thousands of drums begin to beat. The sound is deafening. It rolls across the water like thunder. The Janissaries begin to chant verses from the Quran. The wind is blowing from the east, favoring the Ottomans. It is pushing them forward, driving them into the Christian face. The Christians are rowing into the wind, struggling, tired. But then at 10 a.m., a miracle happens. The wind shifts, it stops, and then it begins to blow from the west. The sails of the Holy League fill with air. The Ottoman sails go slack. Don John looks up at the sky. Ali Pasha looks up at the sky. The stage is set. The door to hell is about to open. It is 10:30 a.m. The fleets are closing. The gap is now less than a mile. To the Ottoman eye, looking west, the Christian line looks strange. In front of the main battle line of galleys, there are 6 massive, lumbering shapes. They look like merchant ships, round, heavy, slow. Ali Pasha, watching from the poop deck of the Sultana, assumes they are supply vessels. Perhaps the Christians are so foolish they brought their food stores to the front line, or perhaps they are meant to be sacrifices, floating obstacles to slow the Ottoman charge. He orders his fleet to open up. "Split the line," he signals. "Row past these heavy tubs. Ignore them. Get to the galleys behind them." It is a fatal miscalculation. These are not merchant ships. These are the Venetian galleasses. They are a secret weapon developed in the Venice arsenal specifically for this moment. They are hybrids, half galley, half galleon. They are high-sided, making them almost impossible to board from a low-slung galley. Their sides are reinforced with oak thick enough to stop a cannonball. But their real secret is the firepower. A standard war galley carries 3, maybe 5 guns, all facing forward. You have to aim the whole ship to fire. A galleass carries 44 heavy guns, and they are mounted on swivels. They can fire forward, backward, and sideways. They are porcupines made of iron and hate. As the Ottoman center rushes forward, screaming their war cries, the sides of the galleasses suddenly erupt in smoke. The sound is not a crack. It is a physical blow to the chest. Hundreds of cannonballs, packed with chain shot and nails, scream into the packed ranks of the Ottoman galleys. The result is catastrophic. Because the Ottoman galleys are light and unarmored, the cannonballs don't just punch holes. They obliterate. They smash through the first ship, travel the length of the deck tearing men apart, exit the stern, and smash into the ship behind it. One galleass broadside sinks 3 Ottoman galleys instantly. Another shot shears the banks of oars off a Turkish flagship. The galley spins wildly out of control, crushing the smaller boats next to it. Chaos ripples through the Ottoman line. The perfect crescent formation is broken. Captains are screaming orders that cannot be heard over the roar of the guns. Rowers are panicking. To avoid the monsters of Venice, the Ottoman ships swerve. They bunch up. They collide with each other. Their momentum is gone. Instead of hitting the Christian line like a hammer, the Ottoman center arrives disorganized, confused, and bleeding. And waiting for them cool and calm is Don John of Austria. He has ordered his musicians to play. On the deck of the reel, fifes and drums are playing a dance tune. He wants his men to feel the rhythm of the fight. He sees the Ottoman center falter. He raises his sword. Fire! The entire Christian center unleashes its volley. Because Don John cut off the rams, his guns can depress lower. They fire point blank into the waterlines of the oncoming Turks. The Battle of Lepanto has begun. While the center collides a mess of fire and wood, the real danger is on the wings. Naval battles in the 16th century are about flanking. If you can get around the side of the enemy line, you can ram them in the flank and roll them up. On the north, the Christian left. The commander is Agostino Barbarigo. He is Venetian to the bone, serious, devout, and vengeful. He commands 53 galleys. His opponent is Mem Sirocco, the governor of Alexandria. Sirocco is a cunning fox. He knows his coast. He knows the shoals. Sirocco sees a gap. Barbarigo has positioned his ships close to the shoreline to prevent being flanked, but not close enough. Sirocco spots deep water between the Venetian ships and the rocks. Sirocco sends a squadron of his fastest galleys shooting through that gap. Suddenly, Barbarigo is surrounded. He is being attacked from the front by the main Ottoman force and from the rear by the flankers. The fighting here is the most savage of the entire day. This is personal. These are Venetians fighting the men who took Cyprus. The ships lock together. Grappling hooks fly. It isn't a naval battle anymore. It's a knife fight in a phone booth. Venetian marines in heavy plate armor clash with Egyptian corsairs wielding curved scimitars. They fight on the decks, on the oars, in the water. Barbarigo's flagship becomes a focal point. 5 Ottoman galleys latch onto it. They are swarming over the rails like ants. Barbarigo is everywhere. He is an old man, but he fights with the energy of a youth. He is shouting orders, rallying his men, pushing back the borders. But the heat is unbearable. The sun, the fire, the heavy steel armor. In a moment of exhaustion, Barbarigo makes a mistake. To shout a command more clearly to a neighboring ship, he lifts the visor of his helmet. It is open for maybe 3 seconds. An Ottoman archer, perched in the rigging of an attacking ship, sees the flash of a white face. He looses an arrow. The arrow strikes Barbarigo directly in the left eye. It punches through the eye socket and lodges deep in his skull. Barbarigo falls. His officers rush to him. He is still conscious, screaming in agony. They drag him below decks. "Hold the line," he gasps, blood pouring from his face. "Do not let them know I am fallen." Usually, when a commander falls, the fleet breaks. Panic spreads faster than fire. But the Venetians do not panic. His nephew, Marino Contarini, takes command. He grabs the banner of St. Mark. For the admiral, for Venice, for Bragadin. The Venetians go berserk. Instead of retreating, they counterattack. They are fueled by a cold, blinding rage. They push the Ottomans back off the flagship. They board Sirocco's vessel. Sirocco, seeing his attack stall, tries to rally his men, but the Venetian surge is unstoppable. His ship is grounded on the shoals. He is wounded, stumbling. He tries to surrender. The Venetians are not taking prisoners today. They cut him down where he stands. They hack his body to pieces. By 1 p.m., the northern flank belongs to the Holy League, but the cost is the life of their greatest admiral. In the center, the battle has become a meat grinder. Don John's flagship, the Real, and Ali Pasha's flagship, the Sultana, have found each other. They are the 2 largest ships in the fray. They attract each other like magnets. The Sultana rams the Real. The crash is so violent that the beak of the Ottoman ship smashes through the rowing benches of the Christian vessel, reaching almost to the mainmast. The ships are locked. They cannot separate. This is exactly what Don John wanted. He has 400 veterans of the Spanish tercios on board, the most feared infantry in Europe. They are armored in steel cuirasses and Morian helmets. They carry heavy arquebus. Ali Pasha has 300 janissaries. They are unarmored, relying on speed and skill. They carry composite bows and fine Damascus steel swords. It is the ultimate test, the hammer versus the razor. Don John leads the first charge. He jumps from the gunwale of the Real onto the deck of the Sultana. Santiago close with them. The Spanish infantry fire a devastating volley at point-blank range. The soft lead balls tear through the silk robes of the janissaries. But the janissaries are disciplined. They fire back with arrows. Don John is hit in the leg, but his armor stops it. He is hit in the chest, but the steel holds. He fights like a man possessed, dancing to the melee, his sword flashing. Ali Pasha fights from the stern of his ship. He is firing arrows as fast as he can draw them. He is shouting verses of the Quran to his men. Paradise is in the shadow of the swords. For 1 hour, the battle seesaws. The Spanish push forward to the mainmast of the Sultana. The janissaries countercharge and push them back to the Real. Twice, the Ottomans almost take Don John's ship. Twice, the Spanish reserves push them back. The decks are slippery with blood. It is mixed with olive oil and lamp grease, making it treacherous to stand. Men grapple and roll into the sea, drowning in their armor. Around them, other ships are joining the pylon. Colonna, the papal commander, slams his galley into the side of the Sultana to help Don John. An Ottoman galley rams Colonna. Within minutes, there's a solid platform of 10 or 12 ships locked together, a floating island of slaughter in the middle of the ocean. Let's find Miguel de Cervantes again. He is on the galley Marquesa, fighting nearby. He is feverish, barely able to stand, but he is on the front line. He sees an Ottoman boarding party climbing the rails. He raises his arquebus and fires. He draws his sword. He is hit. A musket ball tears into his chest. He stumbles but gets up. He is hit again. Another ball to the chest. He is still fighting. Then a third shot. This one smashes into his left hand. It shatters the nerves and bones. The hand goes dead instantly. He falls, but he smiles. He survives. He will live to write the greatest novel in history, but he will never use that hand again. He will later call it a trifle paid for a greater glory. Back on the flagships, the turning point arrives. The Spanish fire discipline is winning. The Janissaries are running out of arrows, but the Spanish have endless supplies of powder and shot passing up from below decks. Don John signals for a final push. The Spanish infantry form a wedge. They step over the piles of dead. They clear the deck of the Sultana inch by bloody inch. Ali Pasha is surrounded. He has no more guards. He is wounded in the head. He grabs a sword and rushes at a group of Spanish soldiers. A musket ball hits him in the forehead. He falls. A Spanish soldier, a former convict trying to earn his pardon, leaps onto the admiral. He doesn't wait for orders. He hacks off Ali Pasha's head. The soldier runs to Don John, holding the head by its gray beard. He presents it like a gift. Don John is disgusted. "Throw it in the sea," he says. But his officers stop him. "No, my lord. Put it on a pike. Show them." They mount the head of the Ottoman Grand Admiral on a long pike and hoist it high above the smoke. The Ottoman banner, the sacred green flag from Mecca, is torn down. The banner of the Holy League goes up. A roar goes up from the Christian ships. Victoria, Victoria. On the Ottoman ships, morale collapses. They see their invincible leader is just meat on a stick. The Janissaries throw down their weapons. The rowers stop rowing. The center has fallen, but the battle is not over. To the south, a crisis is unfolding. Gianandrea Doria, the Genoese commander of the Christian right wing, has made a terrible mistake. He has let himself be outplayed. Ulugh Ali, the brilliant Barbary corsair commanding the Ottoman left, has baited Doria. He has lured him further and further away from the center, creating a massive gap in the Christian line. And now, Ulugh Ali turns his ships. He isn't attacking Doria. He is shooting the gap. He is heading straight for the exposed, defenseless rear of the Christian center. Don John is celebrating his victory on the Sultana, unaware that 60 Ottoman galleys are about to smash into his back. To understand a disaster unfolding on the southern flank, you have to understand Gianandrea Doria. Doria is Genoese. In the 16th century, Genoa is a city of bankers and merchants. They fight wars, yes, but they fight them like accountants. They calculate risk. A ship costs money. A dead sailor costs money. A lost battle is a bad investment. Doria commands a Christian right wing, 53 galleys. His opponent is Ulugh Ali, the master of the Ottoman left. Ulugh Ali is not an accountant. He is a predator. He was born an Italian peasant, captured, enslaved, and rose to become the king of Algiers through sheer violence and cunning. He knows the sea better than Doria knows his own ledger books. For 2 hours, they have been playing a game of chicken. Ulugh Ali keeps sailing further south, extending his line, threatening to wrap around Doria's flank. Doria, terrified of being encircled, keeps matching him. He sails further south, away from the main battle. He opens a gap between his wing and Don John Center. A small gap at first, then a mile, then 2. Don John sees it happening. He signals frantically, "Close the line. You are drifting too far." But Doria ignores the signals. He is obsessed with the flank. He thinks he is being tactical. He thinks he is saving the fleet from an envelopment. He is actually walking into a trap. At 1:30 p.m., Ulugh Ali sees the gap is wide enough. He doesn't wait. He snaps the trap shut. He orders his ships to execute a sharp turn to the northwest. He isn't trying to flank Doria anymore. He is ignoring Doria completely. He shoots his fleet straight through the gap, bypassing the Christian right entirely, and aiming for the exposed back of the Christian center. It is a masterstroke. Doria is now miles away, out of position, useless. He has been played. And Don John, who thinks the battle is won, suddenly has 60 screaming Ottoman galleys bearing down on his engine room. The first ships in Ulugh Ali's path are the Knights of Malta. This is not a coincidence. Ulugh Ali hates the Knights. The Knights hate Ulugh Ali. It is a blood feud that spans generations. The Knights are warrior monks, sworn to cleanse the sea of pirates. Ulugh Ali is the pirate king. The Knights' flagship, the Capitana Malta, is anchoring the southern edge of the Christian center. It is commanding a small squadron of just 3 or 4 galleys. Suddenly, they see a wall of Ottoman ships emerging from the smoke on their right. Not 1 or 2, dozens. The Ottoman attack is ferocious. 7 of Ulugh Ali's galleys slam into the Capitana. At the same time, they hit it from the bow, the stern, and the starboard side. The impact nearly capsizes the heavy Maltese ship. Before the Knights can even fire their cannons, hundreds of corsairs are swarming the deck. The Knights of Malta are encased in black steel armor with white crosses on their chest. They are fighting machines, but there are only about 60 knights on board. They are engulfed by a wave of 500 attackers. The prior of Messina, Pietro Giustiniani, is commanding the ship. He sees the situation as hopeless. He grabs a 2-handed sword and wades into the enemy. He cuts down 3 men. Then an arrow hits him in the thigh. He keeps fighting. Another arrow punches through his chest plate. He falls to 1 knee. A 3rd arrow hits him. His knights form a protective ring around his body, hacking at the endless tide of boarders. It is a massacre. The deck of the Capitana becomes a charnel house. The knights refuse to surrender. They die one by one, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Within 15 minutes, every knight on the main deck is dead or incapacitated. The corsairs cut down the flag of St. John, the white cross on red, and hoist Ulugh Ali's banner. Ulugh Ali orders the Capitana to be towed away immediately. He has done it. He has captured the pride of Christendom. If he can get this ship back to Constantinople, it will be a propaganda victory that will overshadow the loss of the rest of the fleet. But he has forgotten one man, Alvaro de Bazan, the Marquis of Santa Cruz. He is commanding the Christian reserve, 30 galleys lurking half a mile behind the main line. He is the fireman. His job is to watch for fires and put them out. He sees the smoke clearing on the right. He sees Doria miles away, chasing ghosts. He sees the gap, and he sees the Capitana of Malta being towed away by the enemy. Most commanders would hesitate. They would wait for orders from Don John. Bazan does not wait. He signals his fleet, ramming speed. Follow me. He splits his reserve. He sends 1 squadron under one to Cardona to intercept Ulugh Ali's flanking maneuver. Go. Bazan tells Cardona, stop them or die. Cardona takes 8 galleys and charges straight into the teeth of 20 Ottoman ships. It is a suicide mission, and Cardona knows it. Cardona's squadron slams into the Ottoman flank. It is horrific. Within minutes, Cardona's flagship is a wreck. Of the 500 men on board his ship, 450 are killed or wounded. Cardona himself takes a musket ball to the throat, but he survives. But they do their job. They act as a speed bump. They slow Ulugh Ali down just enough. While Cardona is dying to buy time, Bazan takes the rest of the reserve and smashes into Ulugh Ali's main force. The impact is devastating. The Ottomans are disorganized, busy looting the Maltese flagship, distracted by their victory. Bazan hits them like a freight train. His fresh, heavy Spanish galleys plow through the lighter Ottoman ships. His arquebusiers unleash discipline, rolling volleys of fire that sweep the crowded Ottoman decks. Don John, seeing help arrive, rallies the center. He turns the reel and leads the ships around him to join Bazan. Now the trap is reversed. Ulugh Ali thought he was a hammer hitting the anvil. Now he is the nut in the cracker. He has Bazan in front of him, Don John turning toward him, and the coast blocking his retreat. He looks at the Capitana of Malta. He looks at the horizon. He does the math. If he stays to fight for the prize, he dies. If he tries to save his fleet, he dies. The battle is lost. The center is gone. Sirocco is dead. Ali Pasha is dead. There is only one thing left to do. Survive. Ulugh Ali makes a ruthless decision. He orders his men to cut the tow ropes to the Capitana. He abandons the prize. He signals his fastest galleys, about 40 of them, mostly his personal Algerian squadron, to drop everything and form a column. "We are leaving," he shouts. "Row for your lives." They don't turn back east toward Lepanto. The way is blocked by burning wreckage. They don't turn south. Doria is finally waking up and rowing back to the fight. They head northwest, straight out into the open Ionian Sea. It is a desperate sprint. Bazan tries to pursue, but his rowers are fresh only in relative terms. They are heavy ships. Ulugh Ali's galleys are light, fast, and driven by the fear of death. They tear through the water, putting distance between themselves and the Christian vengeance. One by one, the slower Ottoman ships are caught and destroyed. But Ulugh Ali, the fox, slips away. He takes 13 galleys with him. Some sources say up to 40, but only 13 reach Constantinople intact. He also takes one souvenir. He managed to save the great banner of the Knights of Malta. He cut it from a mast before abandoning the ship. He will present this flag to the Sultan Selim II as proof that he didn't lose. He merely withdrew from a slaughter caused by incompetent superiors. As he disappears over the horizon, the firing begins to die down. It is 4 p.m. The sun is getting low. The guns fall silent. The shouting stops. The only sounds left are the crackling of fires and the screaming of the drowning. The Gulf of Patras has been transformed. The water is no longer blue. It is a slurry of red froth, ash, and debris. Historians will later call it the Sea of Blood. And for once, it isn't an exaggeration. Eyewitnesses report that for miles around the battle site, the sea was so thick with corpses that you could walk on the water without getting your boots wet. There are turbans floating like jellyfish, shattered oars, prayer rugs, Bibles. There are thousands of men clinging to wreckage, begging for help in a dozen languages. The weather begins to turn. The sky turns a bruised purple. The wind picks up. The divine storm is coming. Seasoned sailors know that the Aegean in October is treacherous. A squall is building. Don John realizes they cannot stay here. The victorious fleet is battered. Many ships are leaking. They have thousands of prisoners and thousands of wounded. If the storm hits them in open water, the victory will turn into a shipwreck. He gives the order, make for the harbor of Petala. It is a safe anchorage nearby. The Christian fleet limps away from the scene of their triumph. They tow their prizes, 130 captured Ottoman galleys. They leave behind the burning hulks. As night falls, the fires on the sinking ships illuminate the dark water, casting long, dancing shadows over the dead. That night, in the safety of the harbor, the butcher's bill is tallied. It is hard to comprehend the scale. In 4 hours of fighting, the Ottomans lost over 200 ships. 30,000 Ottoman soldiers and sailors are dead or drowned. 3,000 are captured, including 2 sons of Ali Pasha. The Christians lost 12 galleys. 7,500 men are dead. Another 20,000 are wounded. But the most staggering number is this: 12,000 Christian slaves. 12,000 men who woke up that morning chained to a wooden bench, whipped and starved, are now free. They are weeping, kissing the hands of their liberators, ripping the iron shackles from their ankles. Miguel de Cervantes is lying in the infirmary of the Marquesa. His hand is wrapped in bloody rags. He hears the cheers outside. He hears the Te Deum being sung on the flagship. He doesn't know yet that he will never hold a sword again. He only knows that they won. But as the adrenaline fades, the reality sets in. Sebastiano Venier, the old Venetian, sits in his cabin. He is writing a letter to the Senate. He writes about the victory. He writes about the glory. But his hand shakes. He knows what comes next. He knows that winter is coming. He knows the Holy League is a fragile thing, held together by fear and Don John's charisma. Now that the fear is gone, the greed will return. And far away to the east, in the Topkapi Palace, the Sultan does not yet know that his navy rests at the bottom of the sea. When he finds out, his rage will shake the pillars of the world. The battle is over. The war is just entering a new, colder phase. The bells of Rome rang for 3 days. In Venice, the Doge declared that the 7th of October would be a holiday forever. The shops closed, the canals filled with flower petals. They minted coins showing the lion of St. Mark devouring the Ottoman crescent. But while the civilians celebrated, the admirals were looking at their maps with sinking hearts. Winter was coming. In the 16th century, naval warfare stopped in November. The Mediterranean turns violent. Galleys, with their low freeboards, cannot survive the winter storms. Don John wanted to push on. To Constantinople, he urged. To the Dardanelles. We have the throat of the enemy in our hands. Let us squeeze. But Sebastiano Venier shook his head. His ships were battered. His crews were half dead. His hospitals in Corfu were overflowed with 20,000 wounded men, rotting with gangrene and fever. We cannot, Venier said. We have no food. We have no powder. And the sky is turning gray. The Holy League made a fatal decision. They declared the campaign season over. They split up. The Spanish sailed back to Messina. The Venetians returned to the Adriatic. The papal ships went home to Civitavecchia. They promised to meet again in the spring of 1572. They promised to finish the job. It was the mistake that saved the Ottoman Empire. Because while the Christians went home to polish their medals and hold parades, the Ottoman Empire went to work. In Constantinople, there were no parades. There was only the sound of hammers. Sultan Selim too may have been a drunkard, but his Grand Vizier, Sokulmem Pasha, was a genius of logistics. When the Venetian ambassador, Barbaro, cautiously approached Sokolu a few weeks after the battle to discuss terms, expecting the vizier to be humbled, Sokolu smiled at him. It was a smile that terrified the Venetian. Sokolu said words that have echoed through history. You come to see how we bear our misfortune? Listen to me. There is a difference between your loss and ours. In wresting Cyprus from you, we deprived you of an arm. In defeating our fleet, you have only shaved our beard. An arm cannot grow again, but shorn beard will grow all the better for the razor. It wasn't just a boast. It was a prophecy. That winter, the Golden Horn, the great shipyard of Constantinople, became a factory that never slept. Work continued by torchlight. The empire had infinite resources. Timber flowed down the Danube. Pitch and hemp arrived from the Black Sea. Because they had lost their best shipwrights in the battle, they simply hired new ones or forced them to work. When they ran out of seasoned hemp for ropes, Sokolu gave the order to strip the rigging from the merchant ships in the harbor. When they ran out of metal for anchors, they melted down the garden fences of the imperial palace. By the spring of 1572, just 6 months after their total annihilation at Lepanto, the Ottoman Empire launched a new fleet, 250 ships, including 8 massive galleasses of their own, copied from the Venetian design that had destroyed them. When the Holy League reassembled in 1572, expecting to sail unopposed to the Holy Land, they found a brand new Ottoman navy waiting for them. The Christian commanders were stunned. It was as if they had killed a dragon, only to find 2 more standing in its place. Don John tried to lure them into battle again. He sailed to Greece. He taunted them. But the new Ottoman commander, Ulugh Ali, the survivor of Lepanto, was too smart. He stayed under protection of shore batteries. He refused to engage in the open. He played cat and mouse. The campaign of 1572 was a bust. No major battles. No new conquests. Just an expensive game of staring across the water. And that is when the Holy League finally cracked. Venice looked at the math. War is expensive. Maintaining a fleet cost a fortune. Their trade with the East had been at zero for 3 years. They looked at Spain, their ally. Philip II was distracted again. The Netherlands were burning. Spain was slow to send money, slow to send ships. Venice realized a hard truth. Spain didn't care about Cyprus. Spain wanted Venice to be weak, so they could dominate Italy. So, the Republic of Venice did what it always did. It made a deal. In March 1573, in a secret room in Constantinople, the Venetian diplomats signed a separate peace treaty with the Sultan. The terms were shocking. Venice renounced all claims to Cyprus. Venice agreed to pay the Ottomans a war indemnity of 300,000 ducats. Venice essentially paid the Ottomans for the privilege of having been attacked. When news of the treaty reached Don John, he flew into a rage. He tore down the Venetian flag from his headquarters. He called them perfidious merchants and traitors to Christ. The Pope lay on his deathbed, weeping. His crusade was over. The Holy League was officially dissolved. The Ottomans had lost the battle, but they had won the war. They kept Cyprus. They rebuilt their fleet. They forced their enemies to pay for it. From a geopolitical standpoint, Lepanto changed nothing on the map. Not 1 inch of territory changed hands because of the battle. So, was it all for nothing? Let's look at what happened to the men who survived the sea of blood. Don John of Austria, the hero of the age. He dreamed of a crown. He thought the Pope might make him king of Albania or king of Tunis. But his brother, Philip II, was jealous. A hero brother is a dangerous thing for a king. Philip sent Don John far away, to the worst job in the empire, Governor General of the Netherlands. It was a graveyard for reputations. Don John spent his final years marching to the cold mud, fighting angry Protestants who hated him, begging his brother for money that never came. He died of typhus or perhaps poison in a pigeon loft in 1578. He was 31 years old. He died broke and disillusioned, holding a sword, dreaming of the sun at Lepanto. Miguel de Cervantes, the soldier with the maimed hand. He recovered, but his bad luck was just starting. On his way home to Spain, his ship was attacked by pirates. He was captured and sold into slavery in Algiers. He spent 5 years as a slave. He tried to escape 4 times. Each time he was caught. Each time he expected to be impaled or flayed. But his captors were impressed by his courage, and the letter from Don John found in his pocket made them think he was a high-value VIP. His family finally ransomed him, bankrupting themselves to do it. He returned to Spain expecting a hero's welcome. He got nothing. He worked as a tax collector, got accused of embezzlement, and went to prison. And there in a jail cell, he started writing a story about an old, crazy knight who thinks windmills are giants. Without the Battle of Lepanto, without the maimed hand, without the slavery, there is no Don Quixote. Ulugh Ali, the survivor, he returned to Constantinople with the captured standard of the Knights of Malta. He told the Sultan, "I did not lose. The others lost. I saved what could be saved." The Sultan believed him. Ulugh Ali became the Grand Admiral. He built a new fleet. He lived out his days in luxury, the master of the Mediterranean, proving that sometimes running away is the bravest thing a general can do. Marcantonio Bragadin. His skin remained in Constantinople until 1580. Then, a Venetian slave stole it. He smuggled it out in a box of merchandise. Today, it rests in a large marble urn in the Basilica di San Nicolo in Venice. If you go there today, you can look up at the wall and see the urn. Inside is a leather-like remnant of the man whose death started it all. So, why do we remember Lepanto? If the Ottomans rebuilt, if Venice surrendered, if the map didn't change, why does it matter? Because it broke the spell. For 100 years, the Ottoman Turk was considered invincible. They were the scourge of God. Christian armies fled before they even saw the enemy. Christian navies stayed in port rather than face them. Lepanto proved that the Ottomans were mortal. They could bleed. They could panic. They could die. It stopped the psychological expansion of the empire. After Lepanto, the Ottomans never seriously threatened Italy again. They turned their eyes elsewhere, to Persia, to Hungary. The dream of a universal Islamic empire that stretched to the Atlantic died in the waters of Patras. It also marked the end of an era of technology. Lepanto was the last great battle of the rowing ship. It was the Benner era's grand finale. It proved that rams and boarding parties would pass, and broadsides and gunpowder were the future. The Venetian galleasses, those ugly floating castles, were the grandparents of the ship of the line, the dreadnought and the destroyer. Within 17 years, the Spanish Armada would sail for England. There would be no galleys, no oars, just sails and cannons. The world had moved on. On the evening of October 7th, 1571, the sun set on a sea that was literally red with blood. It was a battle of cruelty, of faith, of cynicism, and of breathtaking courage. It was a moment where 40,000 men died in 4 hours to decide who owned the waves. In the end, the waves owned them all. The sea cleaned up the blood. The wood rotted. The empires fell. Venice is a museum now. The Ottoman Empire is a history book. The Spanish Empire is gone. But if you listen closely to the wind in the Gulf of Patras, you can almost hear it. The beat of the drums, the crack of the arquebus, the roar of 200,000 men screaming for their God. The day the sea turned to wood, and the water turned to blood. This has been the story of the Battle of Lepanto. If you made it this far, if you sat through the flaying, the politics, the slaughter, and the tragedy, you are one of the few who truly wants to know how the world was made. It wasn't made by treaties. It was made by iron and blood. I'm beyond the tale studio. Class dismissed.